The atmosphere in city has grown increasingly toxic, quite literally in the case of Bill, who finds himself at the center of a malicious and calculated plot orchestrated by Haley. For weeks, the audience has watched with bated breath as Haley has played a dangerous game of deception, hiding her lethal intentions behind the facade of domestic care. The seemingly innocent, specially brewed cups of tea reserved exclusively for Bill, followed by a deceptively sweet cocktail, were nothing more than a delivery system for a debilitating poison. The meticulous nature of Haley's betrayal is chilling. She masked her venom with sugar and false affection, waiting patiently for the toxins to build up in his system. The culmination of this dark agenda hit with terrifying suddenness. Bill, entirely unaware of the lethal cocktail he had ingested, suddenly found himself overwhelmed by a profound dizziness. The horrifying sensation of his legs going completely numb and paralyzed must have been a moment of sheer terror before the darkness of unconsciousness claimed him. Had it not been for the incredibly timely and heroic intervention of Caroline, the narrative trajectory for Bill would have undoubtedly ended in a tragic fatality. Caroline's sudden appearance was a beacon of hope in a rapidly darkening scenario. Recognizing the immediate, life-threatening danger, she wasted no time in rushing his limp, failing body to the emergency room. However, Caroline's rescue raises a multitude of anxiety-inducing questions for the audience and for Bill's future. The sheer luck of her timing cannot be relied upon forever. As Bill lies in a hospital bed, hovering in that terrifying liminal space between life and death, fighting a desperate, unconscious battle for his very survival, one must wonder about his psychological state upon waking. Will the lingering fog of the poison obscure his memory, or will he awaken with a sharp, terrifying clarity about the hands that fed him? Will he finally look at Haley's seemingly devoted gestures, the teas brought tenderly to his lips, with the profound suspicion and dread they deserve? Furthermore, Caroline is now in possession of the most critical piece of leverage in this entire sordid affair. The remnants of the sweet cocktail, still lacing the glass with Haley's insidious toxins, have safely made their way into Caroline's hands. This is not just a clue, it is undeniable, irrefutable forensic evidence of attempted murder. The power dynamic has violently shifted. Haley may believe she has orchestrated the perfect crime, but Caroline now holds the key to her absolute destruction. The impending collision between Caroline's righteous pursuit of justice and Haley's desperate need to cover her tracks promises to be one of the most explosive confrontations of the season. Meanwhile, in a completely different sector of town, the emotional temperature is rising to a boiling point between Nicole and Kial. The dynamics of their relationship have been fraught with unspoken tensions and the lingering ghosts of past lovers. Nicole recently took a monumental step by initiating a deeply vulnerable conversation with Kial, expressing a profound desire to fundamentally change the nature and trajectory of their relationship. However, Kial, carrying the heavy burden of insecurity and past betrayals, could not easily shake his deeply rooted suspicions. In his mind, the specter of Carlton still loomed large over them, a constant shadow threatening to extinguish their fragile flame. He questioned Nicole's true motives, wondering if her heart was truly in the room with him or if it was still wandering the halls of her past with Carlton. Recognizing that mere words would never be enough to dismantle the fortress of Kial's doubts, Nicole realized she had to make a grand, undeniable gesture to prove her absolute sincerity. She needed to burn the bridges to her past in a way that Kial could witness firsthand. In a moment of sheer determination, she picked up her phone and dialed Danny. This was not a casual chat. It was a strategic, public declaration of her romantic allegiance. With Kial listening intently, Nicole informed Danny, and by extension the rest of their social circle, that Kial was the man who was staying by her side. To twist the knife into the past and secure her future, she explicitly detailed Carlton's voluntary departure, effectively closing the door on that chapter of her life forever. Nicole was intentionally broadcasting her choice, utilizing Danny as the town crier to solidify her truth and prove to Kiel that her commitment was absolute and unwavering. The psychological impact of this phone call on Kiel was instantaneous and intoxicating. The validation he desperately craved had been delivered in the most definitive manner possible. The phone call barely had time to conclude before the raw, magnetic pull of their physical connection took over. In a swift, possessive movement, the young man's strong arms wrapped firmly around Nicole's waist, abruptly ending her conversation with Danny as he pulled her forcefully yet tenderly toward the bed. The transition from strategic declaration to unbridled passion was seamless. As Keel pressed soft, lingering kisses along the sensitive curve of her neck, the last vestiges of Nicole's rational thought evaporated. The heavy emotional labor of proving her love gave way to a primal surrender. Just as she had in their most intimate moments before, Nicole allowed her body to completely take over, letting go of all reason and yielding entirely to the overwhelming tide of their mutual desire. In stark contrast to the genuine, albeit complicated, romance blossoming for Nicole, a much darker and more manipulative dynamic is taking root between Heather and Danny. Heather, ever the cunning strategist, has recognized Danny as a highly valuable, yet easily exploitable asset. Danny is unwittingly sitting on a goldmine of deeply guarded family secrets and holds the key to unraveling the many mysteries currently surrounding Andre. To access this vault of information, Heather has initiated a calculated campaign to build a falsely close and intimate relationship with Danny. She has positioned herself as a confidant, a sympathetic ear in a town full of vipers. Heather's manipulative brilliance lies in her ability to play to Danny's ego and superficial desires. During a recent encounter, Heather sat with feigned fascination, happily listening as Danny launched into a self-indulgent monologue about her recent glamorous trip to London. Danny, utterly oblivious to the trap being set, eagerly bragged about rubbing shoulders with British aristocracy, specifically boasting about spending time with a duke. She even went so far as to proudly request a photograph with him, a detail she shared with immense pride. Heather absorbed every word, validating Danny's vanity while secretly mapping out the psychological pressure points she will inevitably use to extract the dark, hidden truths about Andre and the family's deeply buried scandals. Speaking of Andre, his life is rapidly spiraling into a state of terrifying chaos, usually a man of action and control. Andre currently finds himself cornered at Ophi's, facing a highly disturbing problem that he is completely powerless to solve on his own. He is being targeted by a relentless barrage of mysterious, menacing text messages that have deeply shaken his normally stoic demeanor. Desperate to sever this invisible thread of harassment, he sought out the technological expertise of Smitty. Andre's request was simple but urgent. He needed to know if there was any possible way to trace the digital footprints and uncover the true identity and location of the person terrorizing him through these phone numbers. Smitty, always eager to showcase his skills, immediately went to work. The results of his rapid digital investigation, however, provided no comfort. Instead, they escalated the tension to unbearable levels. Smitty quickly pinpointed the signal, revealing the chilling fact that the person Andre was desperately searching for was currently located terrifyingly close to him. The invisible threat was no longer distant. It was breathing down his neck. The situation reached a crescendo of confusion when a new message suddenly arrived. Smitty was visibly stunned by the contents, a photograph featuring two women. The image, devoid of context but dripping with implied threat, left Andre feeling even more disoriented, completely baffled, and utterly helpless. The walls were closing in, and the true nature of his unseen enemy remained cloaked in shadows. Just as the panic threatened to consume Andre, the sudden and unexpected arrival of Ted at Ophi's forced a jarring shift in the atmosphere. Recognizing the need to conceal his vulnerability, Andre immediately masked his terror. The conversation, which moments before was steeped in blackmail and digital stalking, was abruptly and artificially diverted toward the mundane public sphere of the upcoming election. The stark contrast between the polite political discourse and the terrifying reality of Andre's situation created a scene thick with dramatic irony and unspoken dread. Ted, meanwhile, is carrying his own heavy emotional burdens, acting as a crucial pillar of strength for his deeply traumatized daughter, Eva. The young woman is currently trapped in a downward spiral of profound psychological distress, grappling with the horrific aftermath of a severe medical crisis. Ted has completely set aside his political ambitions to be the emotional anchor she so desperately needs. Eva is consumed by a dark, agonizing comparison between herself and Kat. In Eva's tortured mind, Kat is the fortunate one. Kat's medical intervention, a simple endoscopy, left no visible physical reminders. Eva, on the other hand, was subjected to a brutal, invasive surgery that saved her life but left her body forever marked by jagged, unsightly scars. The psychological toll of these scars on Eva is devastating and incredibly complex. When she looks in the mirror and traces the uneven, lumpy lines across her flesh, she doesn't just see a surgical wound. She experiences a profound crisis of identity and bodily autonomy. In a deeply disturbing manifestation of her trauma, Ava confessed to her father that she feels as though a literal piece of the sister who vehemently hates her has been permanently sewn into her very being. The physical scars have become a manifestation of emotional poison. While she intellectually understands that she should be profoundly grateful to Kat for the actions that saved her life, that gratitude is entirely eclipsed by the revulsion and horror she feels toward her own altered body. The jagged scars are a constant, screaming reminder of her vulnerability and the violation of her physical perfection. Recognizing the severe depth of his daughter's psychological unraveling, Ted responded with boundless paternal compassion. He didn't offer empty platitudes. Instead, he provided actionable support, gently but firmly suggesting that he would find a top-tier psychiatrist to help her navigate this labyrinth of trauma. He wrapped his arms around Eva in a desperate, protective embrace, attempting to physically shield her from her own dark thoughts. He continuously whispered words of encouragement, desperately trying to rebuild her shattered self-esteem by reminding her that she has always done everything perfectly and that she has the inner strength to overcome even this horrific ordeal. Finally, the web of paranoia and hidden agendas tightened considerably during a highly charged encounter between Vanessa and Joey at the local casino. Vanessa, completely unaware of the massive landmine she was stepping on, casually mentioned in passing that she had recently met Joey's sister. The mere mention of Heather's name sent an immediate, icy shockwave through Joey's system. His worst fears, the ones he had been trying to suppress, were suddenly and violently confirmed. Randy had provided Joey with a terrifyingly detailed itinerary of Heather's movements. He had seen her name glaring clearly on the passenger manifest of an incoming flight. He had tracked her as she confidently got into a car, monitored her casual stop at a local coffee shop, and even noted her seemingly innocent visit to a movie theater. Every mundane action was, to Joey, a calculated step in a larger, highly destructive plan. The most terrifying aspect for Joey, however, was not just that Heather was in town, but who she was choosing to associate with. The revelation that Heather was actively cultivating a close, intimate relationship with Vanessa, and even more dangerously, with Danny, sent Joey's anxiety into overdrive. Danny and Vanessa are deeply intertwined in the very fabric of the town's secrets. Joey knows all too well that Heather is a master manipulator, a woman who leaves a trail of devastation in her wake. Her sudden, intense proximity to the people involved in his clandestine work and deeply held secrets is a catastrophic threat. Joey is now acutely aware that his carefully constructed world is on the verge of total collapse, and he must scramble to protect his operations before his sister uncovers the explosive truths he has fought so hard to keep buried.